Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind the top nonprofit galas and signature events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I am beyond excited to talk with one of my favorite people in Texas, and that is Joyce Goss. And for those of you who do not know Joyce, she is probably my textbook picture definition of what it means to be a really wide impacting fundraiser. And the reason I say that is Joyce has given so much to so many different causes, but so many different types of causes, whether it's art, whether it's children, whether it's medical. And, you know, there are very few people that have just the breadth of expertise that Joyce does. And that's why we have her on as a guest today, to lend to her expertise. And one of the reasons we're talking with her today is she is the honorary chair coming up for a wonderful event celebrating its 10th anniversary, and that is Reunite for the Family Place. Joyce, thank you for being here. It is an honor to talk with you today.
I'm so happy to be here. It's great to talk to you.
Absolutely. So, you've supported so many causes over the years, like I just said. So tell us a little bit about how you initially became involved with the Family Place.
Well, I'd heard of the Family Place because of their signature fundraising event, which is Partners Card, and they just celebrated their 30th anniversary with Partners Card. And so I was familiar with the Family Place and what the mission was of the organization. But in 2007, I was asked to chair Palm Night because I'd been to several Palm Night events, which was one of their fundraising events. And so I agreed to do it, but I really wanted to do a deep dive into the organization. So I visited the SAFE campus and the offices. And after I finished visited the SAFE campus, I was just blown away by the organization and what they do to serve the victims of family violence. So I guess 2007 was my initial really big foray into the Family Place.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know that, eventually you and Kenny Goss, your brother-in-law, eventually wound up co-chairing an event that they actually started after your initial foray into it, because it's the 10th anniversary, and that is Reunite. So
Reunite.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about, before we hop into that, tell us what makes you passionate about the Family Place and why that organization speaks to you.
I think it's a well-run organization. It's the largest domestic violence or family violence agency in Dallas, Texas, actually, and probably one of the largest in the nation. It's sad that we have to have this organization. It's unfortunate, but we do. And I think that it's well-run. The organization also, the team really works around their clients, I guess. So they really work to solve the needs of their clients. And it's constantly evolving. They develop programs to meet the needs of the clients as they change. And so, for instance, they have a 24-hour hotline. They've got batterers intervention. They service men now, which in the past it was strictly for women and children. They have a safe campus where it's an emergency shelter and the women and children. They keep the shelter separated. So the men, they have a separate shelter, but the women and children go to the shelter. They have medical providers, dental, education. They have daycare for the children. And then they try to help the women get back into society, so to speak, because usually they're in a different city or definitely a different location from where their spouse or partner was.
So that's really interesting. And, I guess I had never thought about it that way before, that often a lot of times people will come into a community, say Dallas, and really not know a soul. They're really doing it to escape, to escape a really bad situation. So really the Family Place is almost, in a way, for those people coming in from out of town, it's almost like a way of giving them a safe space and knowing that the community of North Texas can be a safe city and a safe community for them, and giving them the resources and the tools to just get their lives put back together.
Absolutely. It provides comfort and obviously shelter. So, and it does help because a lot of times these people are coming in with literally the shirts on their back. So they provide, medical diapers, clothing, and food for the victims and the clients, as we call them.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, I talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the show, and you've supported so many different types of organizations. That's why I really admire you and the work that you do in supporting
Thanks.
nonprofits. What is something that these organizations that you have supported over the years have in common?
I don't, I think that they have to be well-run organizations, but the cause has to speak to me. And I have to either have a professional or possibly a personal a connection with it. Well, obviously, the art charities because of my profession in the art world as the foundation, and now working with Phillips, and then on a personal level, uh, just UNICEF and the Family Place, and most recently Exposed, which was for melanoma and skin cancer, which
Yes.
I had a recent several years ago. I had myself battled cancer, and so thankfully I'm on the other side. But I wanted to give back, so that's thanks.
Congratulations on beating that. And melanoma is a scary thing. And thankfully mine was benign, but I've had two removed in the last 3 or 4 years myself. And it's a scary proposition to do that. So,
It is.
it's the emotional tie and connection. I'm glad you brought that up. It is so
Mm-hmm.
important for people when they are engaging people, such as yourself or other
Mm-hmm.
leaders in the community, that it's important that they find the emotional tie, because, there are so many wonderful, worthy nonprofits out there. But, and this, Joyce, you're one person. So there are only so many organizations that you can positively impact just because you're one person, and time is a
Mm-hmm.
finite thing. So I'm really glad that you brought that thing up. And let's talk a little bit about Exposed a little bit, because one thing that I really, when I heard that you were doing this event, was you were co-chairing it with your daughter. And one thing I love more than anything else is when I see multiple generations engaging in a cause, and you bringing your daughter in, really is just a wonderful thing. So one, tell me what it was like to do that, but then secondly also tell us the importance and kind of how you taught your children the importance of giving back.
Well, first of all, it was really fun to chair an event with my daughter. When I first approached her, she said, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that." And I said, "You can do it." And I think actually it worked out great because as a mother and a daughter team, we brought a unique perspective to the event, obviously, but it also, we had different age groups coming in. So we had obviously her friends and acquaintances, but then also my generation as well. So I think it expands the reach of the event and attracts more donors and volunteers. And I think it's kind of a positive role model for her age group, because not as many women, younger women their age, are cheering events. But I think it was an impetus, hopefully, for other women her age to start cheering, hopefully co-cheering with their mothers or sisters or other family members. But I think it's important. I started teaching Greer at an early age. It's important to give back. And it's great to start at an early age. I mean, children can do trick or treat for UNICEF, or do a lemonade stand and donate that money to an organization, or can food drive for the food bank. But I think giving back at an early age, it teaches kids to use what they have to help others who are less fortunate. And you don't have to have a lot of money. You can give your time, you can give your energy, or whatever resources that you can afford to give. And I always tell Greer about this quote, and it's from Tony Robbins, but it says, "Giving is living." And I think that that's so true. I think it's so true. It just, not only makes you feel good, but you're helping your fellow man.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up something in that statement, and you were talking about you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money to give. And one thing I've touched upon in previous episodes of this is that there's really two important types of members within a nonprofit organization. And to me, both are equally important. One is
Yes.
obviously financial capital is important, but secondly, human capital is just as important, because there are people who, they may not have a lot of money, but they're extremely well connected in a particular space, or they may understand or know where all the new places to maybe host an event are. So it's really important to have a really well balanced and well-rounded group of people behind any nonprofit, like you had talked about, that's well run. Multiple perspectives is really important.
It's very important. It's very important. And you want to have a diverse group of people because it expands your network. So
It absolutely does. And that's, that's really what the beauty of that is. And, when you do have a diverse network, you're able to learn more. And I think that helps you in so many ways outside of the realm that you may know that person. And that's kind of the beauty of what you do is you really, because you've done so many different genres of nonprofits, you're able to take something that you may have learned in one genre, say with UNICEF, and you can apply it to say, Reunite, or apply it to any art thing that you've chaired along the way, whether it's Redefine. I know you've been heavily involved with 2x2 over the years. And it really, what's always fun with that is that it gives that element of unexpectedness, because you've got so much, so many different lanes to draw from, whether it's the challenges of raising in a specific genre, or it's just what makes, a donor resonate with a particular genre.
right, right. I totally agree. I think that, well, I just agree with you. I think you're 100% correct. I can't really add anymore because you were right.
Well, one thing I do want to do, in talking with Exposed a little bit is, what I like is, and may I ask, was this the first thing that Greer has ever chaired or co-chaired?
Yes, other than events in school, and she was, I think, a social chair for her sorority well, I guess at her sorority at UVA, she did organizations or did smaller events. So I guess she did chair those events in school.
Oh, fantastic!
But first major event, I would say.
Okay, so she had a foundation, which
Mhm.
was which was really good, and which is really important. Is she'd done it on some level before, but what I liked about the event that you all did was, a fashion show was a big component of it. And, especially if someone is kind of doing something for the first time, it's, to me, I have always found, if you, I don't want to say ease them in, but you do something that's maybe a little less formal in terms
Right.
of, you're not anchored at a seat the whole time. A lot of it's about
Mhm.
socializing and all that. And, tell us a little bit about, Exposed, and kind of, how the whole fashion collaboration came, because you had a lot of really big vendors, within the Dallas area and beyond that were a part of it.
Well, we were very lucky, and the co-founder of Exposed was Suzanne Warner, who worked for Stanley Korshak for many years. And so she kind of, along with Brett McKinney, kind of had the fashion section of it corralled, so to speak. 4510 also helped us this year, which we were very, very thankful for. But they knew a lot of people in the fashion industry and a lot of the vendors and obviously retailers. So they corralled the fashion. But on the food side, it was a little bit fun because we didn't have a seated formal dinner. We had cocktail tables, and we had a few, seated tables, but people kind of walked around to food stations, and it was fun because they got to socialize, and different restaurants from Dallas participated, and had different types of food and obviously bars. And so people were able to socialize as they went from food station to food station. And Greer's generation, I should say, the younger people had fun because they got to kind of skirt around the event, and they didn't have to sit still all night.
And that's definitely important. As it's funny because after you've done events for a while, it's, yes, sitting down is kind of, it's nice to be able to kind of take a breather and take a breath. But when you're kind of new to it, there's just so much to absorb, and there's so much to take in, and I'm sure with Greer in particular, she was probably with an event of that scale, she was probably, I'm sure she probably learned a lot and can apply it to anything she does in the future, not just,
Right.
in the nonprofit world, but professionally and personally.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yes, that was kind of a good initial event for her, and it was a fun event. And so we did well, thankfully. And so check that
Well,
off the list.
I think I think that's great. And one thing is, with that, it kind of ties upon into a theme, that with Family Place and the Reunite. And you had shared it in a very early year. I don't remember if it was year one or year two, but you had shared it very early on. And I first became aware of it through you and your long-term or long-standing relationship with my husband. You guys have known each other for a minute or two. And
Short amount of
and
time.
that was really kind of the first time I really kind of got to know you, and just to
Mhm.
see you are able to benefit so many different nonprofits. But I love that you take, I don't want to say take a risk, but you're willing to put a stamp on something and kind of start a new type of concept or start a new type of event and let it grow and, and let it grow and thrive over the years. Like you're still involved, but you don't have to be like with some organizations, some people chair the event every single year. So,
Right.
tell us a little bit about, when Reunite, what first got you, how you first wanted to plan conceptually Reunite and kind of what you think of, how it's grown and blossomed and succeeded to today.
Well, we had to create Reunite, and that really goes back to Paige Flink, who was the executive director at the time. She recently retired, but we had Palm Night for years, and I think it went for 15 years, but I'm not for sure. Don't quote me on that. But then the Palm closed in Dallas, and so we could not have Palm Night without the Palm. So the family place had to step back a little bit and kind of rethink. So we tried a couple of events. I was on the board at the time, but we tried several different events that we thought were fun, but didn't quite have the turnout that we wanted. And so I cannot take credit for Reunite, but Paige and a couple of other people put their heads together and decided, the Palm Night was so much fun. So let's recreate the Palm Night, but we'll have to do it at a different location. So that's how Reunite was formed. So it has Palm Night in it, but we reunited again, having a specific dinner, a really nice dinner, some live auction items, and just great food and wine and fun, and raise much needed funds for the family place. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, and I was going to say one thing about Reunite too is that it's been in several different locations over the years. So it's almost like you took that. It was like you don't want to repeat the same thing that happened by having it at the Palm every year. And
Right.
you've had it at so many, like I believe the year you and Kenny co-chaired, I believe, wasn't it at it was at a car museum, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
It was at the Haas Motorcycle Museum. So
That's
yes,
right.
We had a bunch of he had a great collection. And so yes, it was in the middle of a lot of cool motorcycles, which a lot of the men loved that. So that was great. And women too. But it just had a whole different theme for the evening. So it was a little different, but it was fun.
But in a fun way. And that's, and this by going to a lot of different things is, nonprofits are really, I mean, a lot of them since we've come out of COVID, a lot of them have really stepped up their game. And, to be inventive is really important. And Reunite with the family place is one of the first that I can kind of think of that was continually moving things from venue to venue. And now you see a whole bunch of different organizations kind of doing the same thing in unison. And it was always interesting because it was like every year I got the release, it was like, okay, where's it going to be this year? Because I knew there was going to be some new spin to it that wasn't there before. And it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think that the family place and the Reunite team, so to speak, we wanted to try to do something fresh every year and have a great menu and great food and wine, but you have to keep it fresh because people get tired and bored with the same old thing. And so that was one of our mantras, I guess, to keep it fresh and fun every year.
And you all definitely have. Now, one other element that I want to talk about with events that you've chaired in the past, including with the family place and including with Exposed as well, is the whole idea of host committees. And one of the reasons we do this podcast is for people who are just either starting out or are experienced and are looking for kind of new and innovative ways to fundraise. And what I love is that, you're involved in 2 events this spring, different types of formats, different types of settings, but the one thing they had in common was they both had host committees. So tell us how having a strong, one, explain a little bit to our audience what a host committee is, but 2, tell us how it's really essential in creating a good fundraising event.
Well, host committees are important. They are really essential, I think, for a successful gala or an event. And I think you have 2 types of host committees. You have a working host committee, and then I say the non-working, but really it's a committee that lends their name. But your working host committee, you want to compile a group of people that perhaps from different careers or professions that can use their expertise to help fundraise for the event. Well, let's go to fundraise. So you may want people that have a vast network that for sponsorships or selling tickets or obtaining auction items. You may want to get people from a particular background, maybe a PR background or a marketing background or even an event planning background if you don't have the funds the organization doesn't have enough funds to hire an event planner and you've just got your team. So I think having expertise from people in certain fields is important. And on your working host committee, you want to make sure that the people that you ask to join are really up to the task and they're willing to work and donate their time and resources to make sure that the event is successful. But for both committees, you want to make sure too, when I said the non-working host committee, it's usually people, and sometimes I'm on events on the host committee, which they just simply ask you to lend their name and of course support the event financially. And I think when you are establishing your host committee, it's important to get the right group of names. You want to make sure that you have prominent members of the community that lend credibility, because it will help establish the event and it makes sure that it's a must attend event. I'm sure you, like everyone else, when they receive an invitation, because there are so many events, you kind of peruse the host committee to see who's on the committee and say, oh, okay, well, they're supporting this. That probably is a good, charity support if somebody's not familiar with the organization. So I think it's vital.
Absolutely. And there have been many events that I've looped into in over the years that I've never heard of, just because I'll browse through it and I'll be like, oh, this person I've known for 15 years is on this committee. I'm going to go find out a little bit more about that to figure out why. And, and an event doesn't have to raise $1 billion to be impactful or important. And I loved you, of any guest I've had, you gave the most perfect explanation of basically financial versus human capital. And that was through the committees where you have the working and the non-working, and both are important. And you really laid out so well, the working part is important, but the name part is important as well, to create that balance and that ensemble of people in a room. Because the myth about galas a lot of the time is everyone's really, really wealthy and they're in the same space. And those don't make for fun events. You really have to have a mix of fusion and different energies. That really is what makes an event memorable and what makes it special, because, you see yourself in the mirror every morning. So you don't necessarily want to see a bunch of mirror images of you, 300 mirror or 400 mirror images of you when you're at an event.
Exactly. And then, it's great to go with your friends, but it's always good to meet new people. And I think in network. And so I think that it's a good idea to have a good mix of people from diverse backgrounds.
Absolutely. And I have to think, with your background, with just the range of types of organizations that you've been involved with over the years, I am sure that there are people that have come up to you over the years and just, they know you have chaired, one type of event, but they've seen that you do different things. So they're like, okay, Joyce, I want to tell you about so-and-so organization and why, why it's important, and, why I would want you to kind of be a part of it, whether it's just to attend or whatever it is. So,
yeah, you study it, but, again, you look to see who's involved with it, especially if it's people or trust or admire.
Absolutely. So, one thing I do want to talk about with you too is working with high profile individuals. And I know when you and Kenny were co-chairing Redefine, there was quite a bit of that. You would bring in world-renowned names such as Tracy Emin in for an event. So what piece of advice would you give to an organization looking to have a high profile person at their event?
Well, I think first and foremost, if you're honoring a celebrity or you just want them to attend, I think you want to make sure that celebrity or high profile person will have a positive impact on your event. You want to make sure that that celebrity has the same views that are aligned with the organization. I think that's first and foremost. The celebrity's voice is very influential and it can make an event, but you want to make sure that they align. I think that's the key. I think that, having, I guess one of my favorites, but not my favorite, a perfect example of that may be Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk is a very kind and generous man. He supports a lot of women and children's charities and educational charities. But, when Dirk attends an event, that it's probably going to sell out, and that people will support it because they trust and admire him. And he is very loyal to the city of Dallas and is very generous. And so if you're lucky enough to have him support your event, you're going to have a good event.
So what I'm hearing you say, Joyce, is that there is a mix of, you basically are mixing human and financial capital, like that
a little bit.
a hybrid where you're really fusing those different things together. And, it's the one thing I think makes for a great event is when you have multidimensional people that are able to really understand the importance and the value of both. And, it's not about putting the people who contribute the least in like the back corners of the room. You got to mix them in with everybody else, because if you don't, it's going to be boring, and you don't want your event to be boring.
No, you definitely want it to be fun and exciting, because you want people to, number one, learn more about the organization, but have a great time, so they'll come back next year.
Absolutely. And that's the most important thing is, Becca Case and Thrash always did this is, the good guests always get invited back, and the ones who aren't good guests, they go elsewhere. So
exactly. Their invitation gets lost in the mail.
Exactly right. So, let's talk for a second about this year's Reunite. So what are you, first, explain what an honorary chair, the role of an honorary chair, and second, what you're looking forward to about this year's Reunite.
Well, I assume that the role of the honorary chair is to name recognition, but also just to kind of help bring in friends and acquaintances from years past to attend the event. So that's what I've been doing, is calling up friends and trying to get them to support the event. It is the 10th anniversary. I think you mentioned that earlier, of Reunite. So we're very excited about that. I think there's a chef, Junior Borges, is going to be curating the menu at the event. So that'll be fun, because he's an excellent chef and his restaurants are great. The event's going to be at the new Petroleum Club. It's fairly new, I think 6 months maybe. It's a beautiful venue. It's fabulous views of the city of Dallas. And of course, we'll have a lot of fabulous food and wine and fun and some great auction items. So I think it's going to be a beautiful evening, and I'm super excited about it.
Well, we're excited for you with it. And we know it will be an absolute success. So, before we go, I do want to ask you, just because you've chaired so many different types of things, and you've worked with large budgets and you've worked with small budgets, tell us what what's an item, or what's a thing that someone can really do that's doesn't cost a lot of money, but it will help really make an impact for their event.
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know about costing a lot of money, but I think that you want people to remember your event. So I think food and alcohol.
I love it. Just
I hate to say it, but making sure people have a good time. And a lot of times we have some very generous retailers, and sometimes you can get your alcohol donated or your food donated, but I think making sure that people, whatever your budget, have a good time, and they want to come back. And let's be honest, when the alcohol is flowing, your donors get a little more generous when the auction runs around.
They
Sad,
do,
but true.
They do. And if you get a tribute video or a testimonial video during the program that makes them cry, then you've really got them.
You really got them. Right.
Then everything's really flowing, because the tears are flowing, the alcohol is flowing, and all those things are really an important, an important part of an event success.
Or a successful event.
I love that refreshing take on it, because at the end of the day, a good event is about two things. It's about good food, it's about good people, and a third thing, it's about good company. So and you are the embodiment of all three of those things. And I think that's one of the reasons why over the years, so many different types of organizations, regardless of the genre, have wanted to work with you and receive your support. And I'm just so excited that you get to honorary chair, and you got to do something with your chair something with your daughter this year. So this spring there was a lot of full circle things happening for you.
A lot of full circle, very fun, and Exposed and the Aim at Melanoma Foundation is relatively new to me, but I think the work they do is important. And of course, Family Place is near and dear to my heart, because I've been involved so long. So I'm super excited about and very honored to be considered the honorary chair. I felt a little old, but
there are many things, Joyce, wonderful things that you are. You are young at heart, and you are youthful, young, and ageless as far as I'm concerned. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. It was an absolute blast to chat with you.
Thanks, Rob. I had fun.
Me too.
It was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. And the 10th annual Reunite for the Family Place is on May 18th, 2023 at the Dallas Petroleum Club in Dallas, Texas. For more information, visit familyplace.org. And this is Rob Giardinelli signing off on Fun and Fundraising, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.